I've completed the full Visions of 4 Heroes DLC in a few days, although I've been playing for around 8 hours a day just to gather footage for this video. Needless to say, this video will contain spoilers for the campaign and side content. However, it will be divided into a general review in the first half and then a more in-depth view into the content where actual important spoilers appear. So you're safe to watch at least the first part. So firstly, I really enjoyed the story routes. You can fight for Zhangjiao, Dongzhuo, Yuan Shao, or Lu Bu. I'd say this DLC will take the average player around 15 to 20 hours to complete all the story routes. If you're like me and want to keep most characters alive in every battle, it will roughly take you this long. If you want to do all the side content, trainings, and trials, it might take you a bit longer. I've heard some opinions of people who took like 10 hours, but I think that most people like to take their time with the game, which is what I did despite trying to capture a lot of footage for this review. All these characters are portrayed well, and I enjoyed my time getting through their story. I think it's an amazing treat for fans who like them, as you do get to interact with these guys a lot more than in the main story. The 2 new weapons are fun and engaging. If I had to pick my favorite, I'd say the rope and dart wins. However, I'm surprised at how much more fun I've had playing bow compared to Dynasty Warriors 8. I was not expecting it to be that much fun. I think in Dynasty Warriors 8, the bow weapon felt a little bit more clunky, and in this game it feels a lot more polished, and there's a lot of variations of what you can do with it. As a little rundown to how they work. When you're using the bow, you can use it as a melee weapon, with a 3 light attack combo, into a chargeable heavy. When you hold the L1 button, you can then do a light attack, and you release an arrow. Or, when you use your heavy attack button, you can charge your arrows so they explode on contact, or you can just tap it to release 3 arrows, followed by 2, and lastly 1 arrow. These can become stronger if you have Valor accumulated. It has some interesting mobility, like when you dodge and hold L1, and you do a heavy attack, you jump into the air and release a string of arrows from above, or you could just do a dodge into a kick, that then gives you the choice to commit to the kick, so you can close the gap on an enemy, or you can just use said enemy as a foothold to then jump back and therefore keep your distance. When it comes to the rope and dart, you're basically just closing in on the enemy, almost like the opposite of the bow. Specific attacks give you the option to press R2 and close into distance, like, for example, Light 1. And later on you unlock the option to do a pursuit attack after a charged heavy, which allows you to close the distance with R2, which also leads to a spinning attack. You also perform attacks while holding the guard button, pretty much like the bow. You can charge these for a variant, or just tap them. The charge R2 plus L1 looks amazing, by the way. You leap forward and you throw your dart. It looks super anime-like, and I just like it so much. The animation is fluid, and somehow it feels so satisfying to me. You do have a small expansion for your skill tree, and every weapon gains a few levels, and new skills for you to unlock. Some of them are powerful and useful. I'm not a big fan of the battle arts that give you buffs though, so those are somewhat lackluster for me. The new outfits are amazing. I love the drip. This was something I wish they had done for the main game, so I'm glad that the new outfits were included in this DLC at least. My favorite definitely has to be like the peace garb, or the garb piece, or the winter looking outfit where you get some feathers around the main character. They look fantastic. If you want a better look at how these outfits look like, don't forget to check out my video or short showcasing them. It will be in a pop-up card somewhere on the screen. Now, when it comes to the difficulty, most of the DLC is not very challenging, but there are some levels and bits, like the trials, that will really test your skill, so be ready for that. Strategic battles aren't very strategic, unfortunately. I actually barely had to think during those, and I wish they were harder, because there's a lot of potential in this mechanic. They could be a lot more fun if they made the players think with a limited number of turns. And instead, I saw myself clearing most of them with several turns remaining with no losses whatsoever. I hope that for the future of the series, they're able to tune this to the point that it actually feels like a strategic element of the games, and not just like an extra that's there to fill in the gap in some of the content. I hope that they manage to tweak this to make it a challenging mechanic where you actually have the need to use the secret tactics instead of simply just spamming them on the last battle to get through really quickly. Now, going to the major battles, experiencing them from the enemy's point of view was incredibly fun. Some battles can get really chaotic and give a superb feeling of being the strongest on the battlefield. Now let's get to the part of the video where I get to bigger spoilers. So if you want to skip this part to avoid them, please skip to the timestamp showed on screen. What made me enjoy the stories in this DLC so much was how nicely the ending for each story was like. There's something so cathartic about Zhang Jiao becoming a doctor, the game giving you an option to execute or spare Dong Zhuo, and right after Juhei asks you if he valued power or resolve, when in your mind you're thinking, well, without resolve, most likely there's no power, so he's technically valuing resolve, and the possible outcome that comes out of it. So it's kind of both, but you can only pick one. I don't know if everyone overthinks like this when it comes to video game answers that don't have any impact whatsoever, but I definitely do. Also, can we talk about the last fight in this route, where you fight both Lu Bu and Diao Chan? That was insane and such a treat. You're fighting with alongside Dong Zhuo against the two characters that betrayed him at Hulao Gate. That is such a good moment that I enjoyed in this storyline. They even added a challenge specifically for this fight, for you to get a red hair variant. And oh boy, you bet I'm going to defeat both of them within 10 minutes. Even if it takes me multiple hours of non-stop fighting. Just as Dong Zhuo himself would say, I'll be bathing in their blood. Something else that was on my mind was how Yuan Shao ended up developing throughout his story. I vividly remember his characterization in Dynasty Warriors 8, being an obnoxious character obsessed with nobility, and he had an extremely extravagant vibe to him. However, in Origins, they toned it down a little bit in the main story, but they outright made him almost grow out of this in the DLC, which was a very welcome change. It shows that he grows alongside the player due to the influence the main character provides him. There's also some amazingly funny options for you to reply to him with, and he actually reacts to them, and I found that hilarious. The ending was really nice. It showed that he had matured by the end of this campaign. I found that somewhat satisfying, as I'm the kind of person who really liked Yuan Shao's design back in Dynasty Warriors 2, where he looked like a dignified warrior with a fancy armor and clearly designed to look like a noble and more affluent than the other three lords you could play as. And when they started turning him into an annoying nobility-obsessed character with the ridiculous armor, I kind of got disappointed. So this made me very happy in the end. He still has the kind of weird looking armor and that really weird helmet, but you know what? At least his personality evolved, and it's a very, very welcome change. Lastly, we have Lu Bu's story, and I was already expecting the battles in this route to be over the top. One army versus what's essentially 3 or 4 factions combined, but this one did not disappoint. It was extremely fun getting through it, and the only thing I wish had happened was if we had a triple boss fight with Cao Cao, Sun Ce or Chuan, and Liu Bei. Similar to Dong Zhuo's route final fight, that would have been epic! Overall, I really enjoyed this route, and the ending was somehow extremely well done in my opinion. The fact Lu Bu wants to venture into other lands, he shows that he's not some mindless beast, and actually realizes Chen Gong wants to be remembered as someone who's just not inferior to Lu Bu himself, but is also in a similar way a god-tier strategist. I enjoyed that Lu Bu himself even accepts the main character traveling with him, and possibly leaving the Three Kingdoms territory. That was a big surprise, and it has a big potential to be a spin-off game, to be honest. Koei Tecmo, here's the idea, here's the pitch. Talk to me. Let's make a spin-off game together. Lastly, I'd like to talk about the new character, Fei Wei, or as it's revealed later, Huang Zhong. I can't believe they finally made this old man be a younger guy. and they concealed it until the end of Yu and Xiao's storyline. I audibly gasped. I had no clue that it was him. And when they revealed his name, I was flabbergasted. I was so surprised, and I never suspected it was him because I'm so used to seeing him as an old man. I love the fact that he was the one character who was added to the DLC alongside the bow weapon. There's just something poetic about it. At first, I thought he was just an original character, like Juhei or Bailuan, but this reveal rocked my boat because I was not expecting them to introduce Huangjong in the DLC at all. Although it does make perfect sense when you think about it, in retrospective. Now, for my final grade on this expansion, I'd give this DLC a solid 8 out of 10. In part, because I wish they hadn't reused nearly every map from the main game, but also because I think the difficulty for strategic battles could have definitely been tuned better. I also wish they had added a few more weapons than just 2 of them. Maybe 4, so it matches the number of routes you'd be doing, so the game feels slightly less repetitive. I really enjoyed everything else. The story, training, and trials were super fun, as well as getting to know the new companion and traveling around with Juhei. I'm not sure if this is because I was playing on early access, but to me, every time I played with either Juhei or Diaochen as companions and switched to them as the playable character, I had massive FPS drops, and the game felt way less responsive. I also found a bug while using Moongrass to focus your Pyrex and upgrades. It just doesn't highlight anything, and to me that's game breaking, when it comes to the DLC at least. You'd have to switch back to the main game and out of the DLC to upgrade your gems, and I had to deduct some points for that too. But that's completely fixable in the future, and in a future update, so hopefully they will do that if they haven't already. If you ask me whether the DLC is worth the €35 price tag or not, because we're using European currency here, I would say it's well worth it. And you'll be squeezing a good amount of playtime for that amount of money. Especially if you do all the side content there is to do. For the final part of this review, thank you to Koei Tecmo Europe for providing me this early access. You guys have provided me early access back when the game originally launched a year ago, and I've been a fan for a very long time. And I'm really looking forward to the future of the Origins game. As a longtime fan, thank you so much for creating this game and for creating this amazing DLC. Despite having a few issues with the performance of the DLC and some of the reused content that felt a little bit repetitive, especially with the maps, I've really enjoyed my time. I like the new movesets, the new weapons, I like how you guys portrayed all the characters, and I feel like you guys did a fantastic job for your first time at a DLC that looked like this. I hope in the future that we can somehow marry the Diaochen in-game, because so far she's probably my favorite character in Dynasty Warriors Origins. Or maybe we can do that with Zenji. Or maybe we can choose them. That is my final request. It's for us, the players, to be able to marry either Zenji or Diaochen. If possible, at least let us marry Juhei. And I would be happy too. That would be really cool. And I feel like a lot of fans want to see that. So it's just a pitch for a future idea. Thank you so much for this opportunity once again. Thank you everyone for watching this review if you've made it this far, and I hope you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to leave a like if you found the review useful. And if you're still undecisive of whether to buy the DLC or not, do it. Go for it. You only live once, and I think it's worth the money. Thank you so much for watching this. I will be recording even more videos to put out on my YouTube channel. And I'll see you guys then. Ayasin.